Hey guys, so today I wanted to do a video talking about my favorite scary movies. So, something about me is that I absolutely love horror and scary movies, thrillers, whatever you want to call them. Some of the ones on this list I think some people would think are more like psychological thriller, maybe not straight up horror, but honestly I think horror and what scares people is really subjective. Of course, someone could be really scared of like a ghost or something like that, and someone else could be really scared of like home invasions or something like that. I think there's definitely a spectrum. Don't hate me if these are not scary to you or if you don't like these movies. These are just my top picks. They're in no particular order and they all scare me for different reasons, which I think is why I love them so much. I have probably seen almost like every like classic good horror movie, but a lot of the ones that have been recent or in the past, I guess 4 or 5 years, I just haven't really enjoyed. So a few of these are a little bit older, but I just feel like these are my favorite ones, and for some reason these are movies that I can watch over and over again and like still always feel like scared or just like uneasy or just like uncomfortable, which I think is kind of the point with scary movies. It's funny because I in my lifetime have met so many guys that hate scary movies, and that's always been something for me that like if I'm gonna date you and we're gonna have a good relationship, you have to at least be willing to watch a scary movie, because that's like 9 times out of 10 what I want to watch or what I want to go see in theaters. So I don't know, that's just me as a girl. It's a little bit different, I think, because I feel like a ton of people say they don't like scary movies, which I don't understand. I love it, and I really love ones that are a bit more complex. They have something interesting going on, but yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into mine. Please, please, please leave me comments of your favorite scary movies, because pretty much all year round, but especially during like October and kind of Halloween, I love to watch scary movies whenever I get the chance. So any scary movies that you have to suggest to me, please let me know, because I would love to read them and then watch them. So like I said, in no particular order, the first one is The Hills Have Eyes. Now this is terrifying to me. I have watched this movie probably like 10 times, no joke, and every time it still just freaks me out. I think the monsters in this are very, very creepy. I also feel like it's something where you could kind of see it being real, like your family going on a trip and your car breaking down in the middle of nowhere. So I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know, it gives it like a realistic aspect at least, which I appreciate. And yeah, I just think The Hills Have Eyes is terrifying. It has a bit of gore, a bit of blood, and like creepy, gross stuff, but I also just think the idea of it is just like I hate it so much. The next one is When a Stranger Calls. Now this is a bit more of like a thriller. I know a lot of people wouldn't even consider this like a scary movie, definitely probably not a horror movie, but I think it's just creepy. If you've ever been a babysitter, I grew up in a house that kind of resembles the one in the movie, like very modern like that, with a lot of like windows and archways and just kind of, I don't know, like on the lake and on the water. So I can kind of like see the idea of like being in that house just because it's like a childhood house of mine, and I don't know, I just find this creepy and I don't want to like spoil these, so it's hard for me to explain why they're scary, but it's a good movie. I think it's really well done. I don't think it's cheesy, which I feel like a lot of movies, when it's like a babysitter style movie, they go down that really like cheesy, like kind of stupid route, and I feel like When a Stranger Calls is pretty good, and it doesn't feel cheesy or cheap when you're watching it, which I appreciate. I don't know. Sometimes when scary movies go down that route, it kind of ruins it for me, and unfortunately a lot of them do go down that kind of cheesy, very like, I don't know, fake looking route, and I just don't like that. The next one on my list is Orphan. Now, this movie is creepy because it's a creepy kid, which I think is something that a lot of people get freaked out about. Again, I can't really explain why it's so creepy without ruining it, but you know what I'm talking about. And when I found that out, knew that happened, that whole idea, I'm saying it very vaguely so no one can like understand what's going on. That just like, ugh, it like sent shivers down my body, and it still like to this day like creeps me out. So yeah, that's a really, really good movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. And I really love like the coloring on that movie. I feel like it's very blue, very like icy, cool toned, and I feel like that even adds to it just being like very creepy and very like, I don't know, like chilling almost, even though like the color palette is also like chilling in a way. So that's one. The next one is Cabin Fever. Now this movie I know is kind of like, you either think it's creepy or you think it's like funny. I don't know. It can go both ways. not to be confused with Cabin in the Woods. I know a lot of people get those two confused. I personally did not like Cabin in the Woods at all. I thought it was just very stupid, honestly. Like, I didn't like it. I knew they were trying to kind of like make fun of other scary movies and like have that element, but I just thought it's weird. And I also don't appreciate that the names are so similar, because I feel like whenever I say Cabin Fever, people think I'm talking about Cabin in the Woods, which is a completely different movie and completely different plot. But again, a reason why I think Cabin Fever is so creepy is, again, I feel like it's something that could like happen. Going on a trip with a bunch of friends out in the middle of nowhere, like that alone is just, I don't know, it feels like a very real scenario to me, and that's why I think it's just so creepy. Definitely has some blood and gore. I think it would definitely count as a horror movie. And yeah, the main thing that's actually scary to me is a little kid in this movie. So if, you know, that doesn't spoil anything at all, but there's something about like really creepy kids that always get me. So Cabin Fever, definitely. The next one is Panic Room. Now this is a bit of an older movie, definitely has a young Kristen Stewart in it, and I just love this movie. It's so good. I remember watching this when I was younger, actually with my parents, and this one isn't like horror. It's a bit more thriller for sure, and it's definitely kind of psychological, and it's also just the idea of like a home invasion. I think that's very common. I think people have that as a very common fear. I mean, not that home invasions are common, but a home invasion kind of fear or idea, anxiety around that. And this movie definitely delivers that, and that's not spoiling it at all. If you watch the trailer, you can understand that's what's going on. But yeah, Panic Room, very, very intense movie, gives you like that feeling, but it's also just really well done. I love it. There's so many elements and layers to it, and like you really feel for these characters, which I think is really cool, because in a lot of like thriller and scary movies, at least for me, like, it's hard to connect to them a lot of times, and I find it weird that there was like a poll on Twitter or something, or some article I read that said most people when watching like a movie, if an animal dies, people have more of like an attachment to that than even like watching a human die on a movie. So I think that's kind of interesting, but definitely feel like in horror movies, a lot of times they just kind of set up the character development in a way where you don't really care about the characters that much. But in Panic Room, oops, phone alarm. In Panic Room, you definitely really care about the characters and you feel for them and you connect to them, which I think just makes it take on a whole nother layer of why it's scary and like anxiety inducing. So that's a really great one. And again, if you don't like horror and like gore, that's a great movie, because it's not like that. It's just like a thriller. So the next movie I'm probably gonna get chirped for. This is The House of Wax. Yes, the movie that has Paris Hilton in it. Okay, I know that a lot of people think this movie is very stupid. It's very, maybe not well done to a lot of people, but I think it is terrifying. I have like reoccurring nightmares about being in like a little like town that's like a fake town or something, and that idea of the House of Wax just scares me when they're kind of in that little town and everything's fake. Like, oh my god, I don't know. That just creeps me out, and there are many different like parts of this movie that I like specifically remember, like that scenario. If that happened to me, I would just freak out. Does have some blood and gore, but I also just think the idea of it, if you can get over the idea that it's kind of a little bit like low budget and it's a little cheap and silly, and some of the actors in it are kind of surprising that they're acting, if you get over that idea and you really think about what's going on, it's terrifying, like horrifying, and I think it's really actually a great movie. The next one is Misery. Now this is a Stephen King, so it's really great. It has that Stephen King style to it, and this again gives you more of like a psychological kind of thriller. I wouldn't say it's horror, but it kind of is horror because what's going on is horrifying. So I don't want to get too deep into that one just because it's a very like classic movie. I feel like a lot of people kind of know what it's about, but it's just basically about a crazy person. So it's very scary, and again, it's something that you feel like could be real, which I think just makes it take on a whole nother level of like making you scared. And the last scary movie is The Strangers. Now, I know there was a new one that came out recently that I heard was awful. Now, I'm talking about the first one that came out many, many years ago. So good. Again, the idea of like a home invasion type of thing, but also something where it seems realistic, where it's not too crazy or out of the realm of possibility. Going on like a romantic getaway somewhere in the middle of like nowhere, or a town that you're not familiar with. Like, I can understand that, I can visualize that, and to me, that's pretty horrifying. So this is a movie that I think is great. Again, I heard the one that just came out recently was really bad, so don't kind of consider this one to that one because I think they're completely different, and the first one was really, really good and I feel like kind of underrated. And while it doesn't maybe have like the gore aspect, it's definitely a horror movie. Like, it's scary, but in a really, really great way. So I'm a fan of this one, and I feel like no matter when you watch this, it just creeps you out. Like, it's just creepy. So those are my favorite scary horror thriller movies, whatever you want to call them. They're all scary to me in different ways. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit different, but I love this time of year. I absolutely love Halloween. And also, I think it's a little bit funny that I found a terrifying tarantula outside. And it's funny because, like, I don't find like animals or snakes or bugs scary, but seeing this tarantula in person, like close to me, was very terrifying. So I will go ahead and add that in because it's creepy and scary, and maybe none of these ideas scare you. Maybe creepy kids don't scare you or home invasions, but maybe a big gross tarantula will scare you. So there you go. Again, please let me know if you guys have any movies you would like to recommend to me. I would love to watch them, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!